Okay, combining canola just after the frost has come off. You do 3 rounds around the outside of the field in a circular type motion, and then you go back and forth when you're swathing. So I'm still doing the outside rounds. This gives you room to turn around when you get to the end of your long straight swath. The problem is that you're driving over top of these swaths while you're going back and forth, so you do get a little bit of compacting and bunching up, and that's not good. That's called plugging the feeder. That's not a biggie. It's the we got it through and we didn't plug it. Away we go. So there's unplugging the feeder. There's your first lesson in combining, how to unplug the feeder. The problem is when you'd rather plug the feeder than plug the cylinder. The cylinder involves a lot more work to unplug. The trick to combining is to go as fast as you can so that you get as much done as you can while you have good weather, without going so fast that you plug the machine or that you start putting grain over. If you go too fast, you're putting stuff through too quickly, sometimes the combine can't handle it all, and you start to put grain over, which is like throwing money away. So you don't want to do that. But you also don't want to go so slow that you don't get it done until the snow flies. So it's tricky. And part of it is, you know, like you can see this, look at all these windrows. They're nice and smooth, nice and even and consistent. So you can just pick a speed and away you go. But these outside rounds like this, which have been tramped down and moved around by the swather going over top of them, and are a little bit chunky. And chunky is bad for 2 reasons. One is you get a lot, but also when it's chunky like that, it doesn't dry out as much as when it's nice and smooth. So you not only end up with larger amounts of it, but sometimes it's a little bit wet, a little bit tough, and therefore more likely to plug the combine. So when you're going through stuff like this, you're constantly speeding up and slowing down, speeding up and slowing down. This is the last of the outside rounds, and then I'll just be going back and forth, and that'll get a little bit easier. Every now and then the swather had a problem and it got plugged up, but most times you can just sort of pick a speed and go for it. And different parts of the field and the swath are heavier, so sometimes you got to slow down a little bit just because it's a better crop, and sometimes it's a little thinner for whatever reason and you can speed up a little bit. It's a lot about feel, but you also have gauges over here that can tell you how fast the cylinder's turning, and if you notice the cylinder is starting to slow down, well, that means you're maybe pushing it a little too hard and you're risking plugging it. And yeah, that's airspeed. The airspeed doesn't tell you much as far as the performance of it, but the wind speed makes a big difference as to how well the combine works. Engine RPMs, 2300, 2290, and ground speed. We're flying along at 1.8, 1.9 miles per hour. When I get on one of these long straight swaths, in the middle of the day when it's nice and warm, I can probably get up to about 3.3, 3.4, maybe 3.5. I bet if I get going much faster than that, there's a risk of plugging it. You can get away with it for a certain time, but if something gets a little bit thick, it doesn't give you a lot of time to react and slow down. So sometimes it's better to go just a little bit slower than the maximum speed so that you leave yourself a little bit of safety room. And you know, you got to balance off going a little bit faster and possibly plugging it, and then the amount of time that it takes to unplug it where you're not getting any combining done, as opposed to just going at a reasonable speed that you don't have to worry too much about getting yourself into trouble. The finer points of combining, brought to you by me.